light modification, and simple compositing. We're combining techniques here, folks, which is appropriate because this is the second to last tutorial in this entire course, which is kind of a bittersweet thing, I'll be honest. I'm sure most of you are like, nope, it's pretty much just a sweet thing. But for me, it's bittersweet. Actually, it's pretty sweet for me too. Whatever. So what we're doing here is we are adding to existing light, right? We're amping up the existing light to make our subject pop. We're also modifying the quality of that existing light. We're also doing simple compositing because we need to put our light in a place where it's actually in our frame. So let's go ahead and get started with this image. Now we're shooting out in the desert. We are shooting on the Sigma 120 to 300 on my 5D Mark III. And that is an f2.8 lens, folks. Do you know what that means? That means that that lens is absolutely freaking ginormous. And you'll also notice that I'm at 1/100 of a second. Well, do you remember the reciprocal rule from Photography 101? Hopefully, yes. You know, when I was holding pipes and stuff? Yes, no, whatever. Basically, the reciprocal rule states that I need to make sure, as a rule of thumb, no, as a general rule, we don't say rule of thumb, as a general rule that my shutter speed is the reciprocal of my focal length when I'm hand holding the camera. This is just a general rule, of course, which means that if I'm at 300 millimeters, I should be at 1/300 of a second. I'm not. So I put the camera onto at least a monopod. And just another general rule. When you're using freaking ginormous lenses like the 120 to 300 f2.8, which I absolutely love, it's heavy, folks. Your arm is going to be dying within 2 minutes of holding that lens up. So you need at least a monopod to put that thing on. Don't try and just buff it out. That's my version of tough it out for people that have lots of muscles. Buff it out. Don't try and do that. I don't even have lots of muscles. I work out modestly, and I can't hold that lens for more than 2 minutes. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Now for this shot, we're going to be doing simple compositing, which means that if we want to make our lives easier in Photoshop, we need to achieve the same shot twice. And to do that, we could do it with a monopod, but then we're going to have to do layering, and we're going to have to like try and align and match things up because we're not going to be able to get it perfect. So to get it much closer, we're going to put our camera onto a tripod. One little note. Whenever you put a telephoto lens onto a tripod, you do not mount the tripod plate here. That would be silly. That's what this guy's for. This is a tripod mounting ring. It comes with every single telephoto you purchase. You put the plate there and you mount it there because now your camera is much better weighted. If you hold it right here, it's just going to droop and sag, and you're going to end up breaking your tripods early because you're putting too much weight on the tripod. Not to mention you're putting a lot of weight just on this little ring right here, which can't be good for your camera either. So just a little tip there for y'all, from me to you. Okay, so let's keep going. We have our camera up on the tripod. We have our Mi Photo Globetrotter right there with our Sigma 120-300 mounted up. We're shooting at f4, 1/100 of a second, and ISO 200. So we don't really have to worry about sync, right? As far as my composition, what I mainly want here is just to zoom in all the way so I can compress the background and bring it up forward, or at least give the illusion that the background is closer to my subject. And we get that. We get these beautiful waves and so forth. We achieve a really nice ambient flash or an ambient exposure balance at this setting of 1/100 of a second, f4, ISO 200, and 5800 degrees Kelvin. That's beautiful. It's great. But guess what? Our subject is a little bit on the dark side, is she not? Now, not like Star Wars dark side, not like Jedi, Darth Vader dark side, even though she is wearing black. She kind of looks like a sexy Darth Vader out in the middle of the desert, if there were such a thing. But she's dark in the sense that she blends too much into the background. The sky is brighter than she is. Everything is brighter than she is. And she's just kind of blending into the sand. So what do? Well, I've got my good buddy, Trevor Daly, out there. In case you missed the previous videos with Trevor, he's an incredible photographer. You guys should check him out. He's one of the best wedding photographers in the world. Absolutely awesome. Fantastic guy. I'm going to be seeing him in like a couple days, which is going to be rad too, because we're going to hang out and have a good time. He was good enough to come out on the shoot, and he's holding our big boomstick. So with the boomstick, we have the Bolt VB22. We've set up with the Westcott Rapid Box, and finally, I can show you what I was talking about. You know how I was saying that basically the head doesn't quite fit in to the Westcott Rapid Box? You can see that right here. And you can see it bleeding out right there. and actually that bleeds out into the lens, and it causes a soft, very subtle kind of blue blur over in the, or blue flare over in that left corner. So it's something to watch out for. If your flashes are not completely seated correctly, well, in the modifier, either you've put them in there incorrectly or you have a modifier that doesn't fit them well. Either way, you need to make sure that you don't have this issue. And that's why I went to the SMDV one, because it actually fit the bolt a little bit better than the Westcott. But the Westcott's designed for pocket strobes, not for medium strobes. Again, for medium strobes, ideally use the ProPhoto RFI, the 3-foot octa. Okay, so we're using that, and we're just kind of dealing with the flare. I know I'm gonna be compositing anyway, so as long as that flare is not over our subject, I'm okay. All right, so we shoot, and we basically are lighting her with about 1/4 to 1/8 power coming through that little octa with diffusion. So what have we done? Well, we've taken the sun, which is our primary light source in the first shot. We have not only amplified the existing light strength, this is, by the way, just right around dusk. So we have a very soft quality to the light because the main light source in this shot is actually the sky and the sand and everything, so it's a large light source. But by bringing that octa close to her, not only have we amplified the existing light, we've also modified the quality just a little bit. We have a little bit better shadow definition. We have a little bit more fall off. It looks great. It looks really nice. The only problem now is that we need to get Trevor out of there. So what we do is we pop the shot with the light, and then I say, "Trevor, duck!" And then he jumps down and he hides behind the sand dune, and he hides the, at least most of the head. The head was poking out, but I'm like, no worries. You covered it up enough. That's good enough. And then we once again do a simple composite in Photoshop. Layer these two images, and where Trevor is, I just mask the background. If I have a flare, I just pull in the background, and that's it. We end up with this final shot. And all I did in this final shot in Photoshop is just basically remove some of the sand from the background. It has a couple basic Lightroom presets from the Lightroom preset system applied to this, but that's it. Now, why did we shoot this overall like composition and pose and everything? Well, for the pose, you'll notice that I have her kind of standing again with the leg coming in, and I have a knee jutting out of the slit in the dress. The reason for that is I want to show off the design of the dress. If we don't have the legs sticking out of that slit, then we have not utilized the slit, folks. And if I were a dress designer and I design a slit, I want to see the slit in my photograph, right? If I were a girl wearing a dress with a slit, I'd want that to be present in the photograph. It's part of what she's wearing. It's part of the fashion of this particular outfit. We have a beautiful little, like, you know, what are those called? Bracelets. We have beautiful bracelets on there. So I have her arm going across and kind of holding onto that side. A great necklace. But you know, this shot's really more about the environment. We're pulled back so far that you can't really see a lot of those details. What I do want to make sure that I maintain in the shot is just the shape and the form of her body. I want to see the form. I want to see shape. I want to see all that. And we can in this photo. And if you want to exaggerate in Photoshop, then by all means go ahead. This is a beauty type shot. This is a fine art type shot. To me, you can exaggerate those as much as you want. This is your artistic vision. It's not about being morally correct in Photoshop. Is that even a thing? I mean, I know it's a thing, but should that be a thing? I don't think it should be a thing. Okay, so that's how we can get to a fantastic image, an image where our subject pops off the background very simply, very quickly, with simple compositing, along with adding in those previous steps. So when you aren't able to get the modifier out of the frame, don't worry. Just do what we've taught you here. Get the camera up on a tripod, shoot the shot with the light, then shoot one quickly afterwards without the light, or just hide the light till the assistant come out of the frame and so forth. Remember that for this scene, I had everybody walk behind the dune and then come up, so we don't track tracks into there that I have to Photoshop out later. Make your lives a little bit simple. Think through a shot before you actually go and do. So key tips for simple composites like this. Make your life easy, get a tripod, put the camera up on a tripod. That's tip number one. Tip number two, make your life easy. Take the shot with the light and your plate shot without the light within, a few seconds of each other so that the light stays consistent between shots. Otherwise, you have to exposure balance between them. Number three, just ensure that there was not much, if any, movement between the two frames. Otherwise, once again, when you layer, you're going to have to balance them out. You're going to have to move and manipulate and kind of shape things, and your masking becomes a little more difficult. So to make this a 2 to 5 minute process versus a 30-minute process, it comes down to practice and just making sure you refine the process and getting the right two images in camera, so that way it's more simple in post. That's it for this video. Let's move on to our last and final tutorial.